every November, Boston College football has seemingly been hit with the injury bug. With the hire of Craig Fitzgerald, that's all going to change this year.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. This is AJ Black, part of the 247 Sports Network and host of Locked On BC. On today's show, we're going to look at strength and conditioning. I promise you I will make it interesting. I got a pair of crystal balls from a very reliable source, and I'm going to look at the portal exits for basketball and what does Earl Grant do from here on out. We'll get into all of that on today's show. Now, let's hop back in. Craig Fitzgerald, a very highly regarded strength and conditioning coach, comes in with Bill O'Brien this year after being hired by the Florida Gators at the end of 2023. He lasts 3 weeks in Gainesville or 4 weeks before O'Brien hires his friend away, because he's had experience with O'Brien, both with the Houston Texans and at Penn State. Now, why am I talking about strength and conditioning? Because it's going to be critical for Boston College to get to that next level in terms of their performance through their strength and conditioning coach. Now, I'm not here to bash any of the former staff. I am going to say that one of the themes that Jeff Hafley had go through his program, the 4 years he was here, was the teams were relatively healthy for the first 6 weeks, and then it all went to crap. Everyone got hurt. You know, you were playing freshmen. You were playing guys that you didn't really want to play because guys couldn't stay healthy. And it was a lot of nicked up type of things too. Now, will a strength and conditioning coach change that? I have to say yes, it definitely will. At practices, now I gotta preface this. This Bill O'Brien has finally opened the doors to practice to the media so we can actually watch what they're doing. Remember, Hafley let us watch the first 25 minutes of practice and then close the rest of it off. So, you know, he did no favors in allowing us to have any access to see what they were actually doing. So I'm going to actually have to guess on what Hafley did, because he didn't do, as a guy that a lot of folks thought of as friendly and outgoing, he made things kind of hard to know what's going on. But I can tell you what I saw with Bill O'Brien. So let's go on with that. You go to practices now, and Craig Fitzgerald is an animal. This guy is all energy when he's out there, and he gets that crew going. And, he starts off with stretching. He starts off with getting the guys in shape and ready to go. You see the videos of what he did preseason with weightlifting and some of the strength building that they're doing. You get going now, and the one thing I see, one of the things that I think is kind of funny, and I've heard the players all groan and moan about it, is they have these big physical scrimmages. They're pushing, they're working their butts off out there, but practice never ends with the scrimmage. It ends with sprints at the end, and that's all on Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald's got these guys running at the end, and I have seen offensive linemen like curled over, almost about to puke. I heard one player, and I'm not going to tell you what position it was, on Saturday go, "Oh, it's the worst part of practice." It's because Fitzgerald is pushing and building up that strength, building up every piece of their body to get them to that next level of physical performance is only going to help this squad. Just think about these past few seasons. What it would have meant in November last year if you had a full deck of cards in the secondary, if you had a full deck of cards, in some of these other key positions like George Takis, who was out for a while. It would make a big difference for this team to have a healthy team. Now, that's not to say that injuries are going to happen. In fact, if you're at practice, you've seen a number of guys out, but that's football. That's part of what it is, right? I mentioned on yesterday's episode, Kai Robichaux. He's missed some practice. And you've seen a number of other players that have been out. But Craig Fitzgerald has a reputation, and it's a good one, for getting their guys conditioned to the point where you can minimize those season-ending injuries, that you can minimize losing a whole positional group because they're banged up. He does that every single day through the work that they're doing. Here's an example I want to give you between what I've noticed between Halfley and what I've noticed between O'Brien. Now, again, I can't see everything in practice, and I don't know if O'Brien will be different when it comes to the summer. But last summer, you had an option as a media member. You could go to the first 20 minutes of practice and then just sit around BC for 2 hours, diddling your thumbs, figuring out what you want to do until the press conference starts. Or you just show up to when the press conference starts. For me, I just showed up when the press conference starts because I'm not going to watch guys stretch and sit around and have to pay parking to get no information. That being said, there were multiple times over the last couple of years where I would get to practice and it was knocked off early because Halfley just ended our practice early. Just the thing he did, right? The difference, this is a difference I've noticed. Bill O'Brien, his practices go long. Every practice I've gone to, I get the timing of it. It's always, it's always going a little bit longer. And now he has to be able to abide by NCAA regulations. And I'm sure he's doing that. But I can tell you that Fitzgerald and O'Brien are never ending practice early. He's got his guys working every minute they're out there, and he's pushing them. That's going to get this team tough, and that's something that O'Brien has said from day one that he wants. And he has said and the reason I bring this up was because we talked to O'Brien after Saturday's scrimmage, and he talked about how his team's conditioning isn't there yet. He says they came out sluggish, and that their conditioning is not where they want them to be. As someone who needs to get themselves back into shape, I was a former marathon runner. With kids, I've totally fallen off the cliff. I would not want to be in that locker room once practices are over because Fitzgerald is going to drill these guys back into shape. I'm very interested to see how this team looks in August when they come back because remember, once practices are over, it's up to the strength and conditioning coach basically runs everything, right? What's he going to do to get this crew to the level that O'Brien wants them to be at? They're going to be in good shape. And I think that's going to make a big difference. I can't wait to see what it's going to look like. In a moment, let's turn the page over to recruiting because I want to look at two crystal balls I made, and I'll explain to you why they're important and who they are in just a moment. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Now, I am not my jam is not to pick spreads or winner or losers in baseball. My jam, home run prop bets. And you can find them all on FanDuel. Looking at Rafael Devers or Juan Soto or any of these guys that are big hitters, throwing a few out there every single day, see what I hit. I'm usually doing pretty good. So bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black, and I want to talk a little bit about recruiting. Now, if you follow me on 247, and I hope you do, and I hope you have already subscribed. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Get over there right now. It's a cup of coffee a month, and you get all that insider information. Now, this news I broke last night, I gave it, 12 hours to ruminate with my VIP users. But I wanted to give you a few crystal balls that I have for college football recruiting. Now, BC football currently has 3 commitments for the class of 2025. And right now, one of them is from Massachusetts, one is from Florida, and one is from New Jersey. Now, if I were to tell you that the net what one did I say New Jersey? Yeah, I did. New Jersey, sorry. If I were to tell you that one crystal ball that I've made is for the state of Wyoming, I think you all say I'm crazy. Now, if I were to tell you that one of the crystal balls I made was from a quarterback from Wyoming, you guys are definitely thinking I'm kind of nuts. So here's what I'm thinking. There is a recruit. His name is Mason Druby. He is from Wyoming, and he is a class of 2025 quarterback. You can see his picture up on the screen right now. He was on campus last week. He's 6'4". He has been impressing a lot of folks, and I'm going to read you his scouting report because I think you need to know a little bit about this guy because I think this is a really good get for BC if he does commit. Greg Biggins of 247, one of my colleagues, says Druby is one of the most intriguing players we've seen in the 25 class. He has a chance to be the most heavily recruited player from the state in the last decade and has an all-around game and athletic profile we're really high on. He's a 3-sport athlete who plays baseball and basketball and is a 3-year starter on the hoops team, has averaged 11 points and 4 rebounds in a game. Guys, don't get me thinking he's not going to play for Earl Grant. Now, at 6'3", 205 pounds, Druby has a projectable frame and shows true dual threat ability. He has a strong arm and throws deeper outs and posts on a rope, but shows the ability to throw with touch, anticipation, and can layer the football between defenders with great accuracy. He doesn't run a ton, but his athleticism shows up in his pocket mobility, how he can elude pressure, extend plays, and throw on the run or take off when he needs to. He looks on balance when he throws, even when rushed, gets the ball out quick, and can throw from different arm angles. He's a tough kid who stands tall in the pocket and will take a shot and isn't afraid to deliver one either when he gets out in the open field. A definite Power 4 prospect and should be recruited at the national level. That right there, man. You got to get excited about this kid. He's got offers from Michigan State, Oregon State, Nevada, North Dakota State, and there's a school I'm totally blanking on right now, but he's got some good offers. I'm excited about this kid. I hope BC can land him, and I feel confident that they will. He is under-recruited. I mean, how many people are going to the state of Wyoming to watch kids play? But watch his huddle film if you have not already looked it up. Mason Druby. He's got an arm. And I got to say, when you look at what BC has recruited for quarterbacks in years past, this seems like a different level of quarterback than BC has landed. You have Jacoby Robinson, who I think is a project still. Peter Del Portis has not panned out, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with him. You have Matt Reevy, who has not really been more than a practice squad type player. You had Anthony Brown, who is obviously an NFL level player, but never really did it with BC. Darius Wade did nothing. EJ Perry. I mean, you go down the list, you have not hit on a good quarterback. Anthony Brown probably is the closest that you've landed in the last 5 or 6 years. I think Mason Druby has the chance to do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you hear something buzzing soon. So this could be a nice start because I think the big deal with Bill O'Brien is this is a guy, you look at this picture on YouTube, who's over Druby's shoulder? That would be Tom Brady working with Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien's going to be able to land some quarterbacks based off of his pedigree. I think Druby would be a first good start. And there's plenty more that they can look at in the future. Now, he wasn't the only crystal ball that I landed. The other was, and I was going to make a whole joke about how this great guy named AJ Black, he made these crystal ball projections on 247 Sports. But then I completely forgot about my joke, so I'm not going to let it stick. The other one is Micah Amity. And this is not in the state of Wyoming. This is in the state of Massachusetts. He plays at the Varian Brothers. home of Henry Hasselback right now, and Charlie Comella, who's committed to BC. This is a defensive tackle. He's 6'3", 275 pounds. He is the quintessential BC type of recruit. He, from what I've heard from some people who know him, he is quite the athlete and dominant in Massachusetts college football, high school football, excuse me. But he hasn't recruited all that much. He only has an offer from Army. He's interested in Syracuse, but hasn't had an offer from them. He was on campus this past week for a visit, and he's going to be back on campus next week. I've heard great things about him, and I know that the interest is reciprocal. So I put in a crystal ball for him as well with a confidence rating of 7. I feel like BC's in good shape here because they're going to be the first Power 5 school to offer this kid. That means a lot. They're in his backyard. That means a lot. And he really liked the staff that he met with. That also means a lot. So there's 2. Are either massive names? No, but Mason Drewby, I mean, you just heard the scouting report I just gave. There's a lot there to like. And Micah Amity is more under the radar, but BC makes their bones on guys out of the radar. You guys know all the stories between Matt Ryan and Mark Herzlig and Luke Kuechly. The stories go on and on. There's guys that always end up being good here if they can develop at Boston College. So there's 2. And I want to also say that there's a bunch of guys that are coming that are more higher profile that are going to be visiting. And if you go to Eagle Insider on Tuesday morning, I have a list of the visitor list for Tuesday. There's some interesting names from different places, Florida and Utah, that are visiting on Tuesday. Interested to watch where they're coming from. Get over there right now. Sign up. You get 30% off a yearly subscription. I promise you, I'm putting my name on the line here, folks, that you're going to enjoy your subscription. We've got a ton of great content coming up over on Eagle Insider. So make sure you sign up today. I'll put the link in the show notes. In our final segment, let's go back to the parquet because BC basketball has lost 4 players in the transfer portal. Is this reason for concern? I'll explain why in just a moment. This is Locked On BC. I am your host, AJ Black. Now, if at the end of the last season, when BC was playing Providence and Fresno State and the NIT, if I were to tell you going into the 2024 school year, that BC would be without Quinton Post, Jaden Zachary, Claudel Harris, Mason Madsen, and Prince Oligbe, I think every single one of us would have been panicked. You'd be saying to yourself, this team isn't going to be winning any games. But the joy of the transfer portal is the transfer portal taketh away, but the transfer portal also giveth. And I think it's important to remember 2 things. That 1, BC basketball, and especially I'll give credit to Earl Grant at times, has done a dynamite job of landing players in the transfer portal. If you're just looking at BC, just in the last couple of years, you look at guys like Makai Ashton Langford, even guys that got hurt like Derek Thornton and I'm totally blanking on his name. There was a big dude. There was a big dude from Illinois State, and I don't have his name in front of me, but I lost his name. But there was a couple guys like that. Grant, Quinton Post, they were able to grab him dirt cheap and get him here. And, Mason Madsen himself. There was a couple guys that they have brought in that have done that. So while I understand the urge to panic because you lost 4 players and a graduate, there were big time offers. I've heard from sources close to BC, the staff feels like they're going to be able to land some good names. So what the purpose of this last segment is to validate your feelings. I'll be like a therapist here. Validating your feelings that, yes, it is okay to be worried that you've lost a ton of talent, and you have lost a ton of talent. But it's also fair to say that you should probably chill and wait to see what Earl Grant can do. We've seen BC manage the transfer portal with limited needs. Like, last year was one guy. It was just Claudel Harris. And the year before, I think it was just one guy. And that was Mason Matt. It might have been two. You're at four, you're at four right now. You could be getting up to five. I've heard buzz of another player. I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to ruin anything here. That's a different ball game. But I also want to say this isn't like a condemnation of Earl Grant here. This is happening everywhere. It doesn't matter. You're going to get a few teams. I'm sure Duke probably has like one guy, but most schools that you're looking at, they have 4 or 5 guys in the transfer portal. That's the new norm. So while it's easy to look at Earl Grant and say to yourself, "Oh, what's going on? Has he lost control of the locker room? Is he losing this team? Why are they all leaving? Is it NIL?" There's truth to there may be pieces of that in all of these. That being said, overall, it's not an issue that is completely unique to Boston College. And I think what excite honestly, I'm gonna say this. I'm kind of excited to see what BC can do with a bigger transfer portal class group. Are they going to be able to do it? Or are they going to be going to Charleston Southern again and getting guys that are really, really under the radar? Because this team needs a few top level guys because you can't go into next year with giant question mark as your leading scorer. It's Devin McLaughlin, but him, and then you have basically no guards. You have a couple guys that have kind of played here and there with Chaz Kelly and DJ Hand. You got to get some other things out there. That's going to be the side to me to worry. If BC goes out there and they're getting all, P5 casts off that are just haven't really played, or guys that are coming from like D2, which I could totally see this team doing, that would be what I worried about. But if you see some like names that come in and you're like, "Oh, this guy can shoot. This guy is a good ball handler. There's a big here. Oh, okay." Then maybe things will be okay, or they won't be as bad as they want. The one thing I do want to say before I go out is, this is not a knock on the kids. Going into next year, even with like say all these guys hung around, this team get to the level they did last year? No. You kind of almost have to gut it and restart again to try for another push because Quentin Post meant a ton to you. You don't have another guy like that on this roster. You don't have a guy that can push this team over the edge, I don't think. And I think this is going to be fair to watch. And so I saw a statistic on Twitter. There's, I think, 1,300 players in the transfer portal, and only since it's opened a couple of weeks ago, only 150 players have found a new home. It's like 10%. So it's starting off slow. So don't get worried yet. There's going to be I think there's probably going to be in, the next coming weeks, a rush of names that start to come to BC. I still also, as I said, do not believe this is the end of it though. I think there's going to be more transfers. So BC basketball is going to look drastically different in 2024. This is AJ Black. We have 2 more episodes already planned out and one more on Friday that we could talk about a billion different things. We're going to have on BC a hockey blogger to talk about the Frozen Four. We'll get into everything about that game against Michigan. And then later this week, we'll have on Mitch Wolf to talk about the spring game and preview everything going on there. So we've got some good stuff coming on. Make sure to like and subscribe this podcast wherever you get Locked On BC. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button too. It does help us out. Thank you all. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247 or become or I should say, and become an Eagle Insider VIP. Would love to see you over there as well. Thank you all so much. And thank you for listening to Locked On Boston College, your team every day.